Hi everyone, my name is Ria Lala and welcome to Grow Great Live. And joining me today, of course, is Antonia Dodge and Mariana Pollock. Now today we're talking about the different roles that we play in parenting, the different roles between men and women. And we're going to explore whether or not these roles are fair. Do you find them frustrating? Is it normal for men and women to play different roles when we're raising kids? So I'm really excited to get started on this. And we're going to, of course, start with Antonia. Antonia, what do you think? What do you think about the different roles that men and women play in parenting?
Well, I've actually been thinking about this quite a bit, especially considering that I have a couple stepkids that alters the dynamic of how the family, I think, quote unquote, normally ends up playing out. Because I'm not the natural parent of two of the children who, of the three that end up in our house a lot, for two of the children, I'm not their natural parent. So a lot of the role gets shifted onto my husband. A lot of the heavy, lifting gets shifted onto him just because I'm in a blended family. And then I look at the difference between that and then how we respond to, our child Piper, who does have both her natural parents in the home. And it's really interesting to see the difference between how parents in blended families, maybe even single parents, would see this topic versus two-parent families would see this topic. So I've thought a lot about it. And in particular, how our roles get apportioned out, how the roles get allocated in the house versus who believes that the responsibilities should be falling on them. I've noticed that there's a lot of programming, I believe, that goes into women to see that they should be responsible for certain things, even if they are no longer, even if we're no longer in a time period where it's assumed that one person will be the breadwinner and the other person will stay home, like the husband will be the breadwinner and the wife will stay home and take care of the kids, raise them. Even if we're very much beyond that model as like the accepted norm, I think we still have this ghost of assumption that a lot of those roles will fall on the woman, even if she's, say, a working mom. Even if she's working full time, she'll still take the brunt of the guilt, say, if the house is destroyed. Like if the house is a mess, the mom is still going to be the person who's self-conscious about it. If the kids need fed and everybody's rushing around like a crazy person trying to go, okay, you change the diaper and I'll go grab the diaper bag and then we got to get going. If you're leaving the house and the kid isn't fed, it's the mom that goes, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible mom for not feeding my kid. So what else, the other part I think about this that's so interesting to me, not just how the roles get allocated, is where does the guilt and shame fall when the roles aren't handled? That's something that's really interesting to me too. But all of that said, I think we're entering a time period where men are more and more open to the idea of accepting roles and responsibilities, even if they don't have that shame mechanism that comes in as much. They are more and more open to, to sharing the load, to not like my father-in-law has never changed a diaper in his life. He's got like 2 kids and 6 grandchildren, and he has never changed a diaper. And my husband Joel, like, he probably changes 50% of them, right? Like like if it's poop, it's like, okay, who did the last poopy one? Now it's your turn. And he's taking an active role in helping Piper potty train, which is very interesting. He's, and I don't think he's an anomaly. I think that that's more and more accepted as not being unmasculine or emasculating to take on those roles of children of or fathers of babies or of older children. I think men are more and more accepting this concept of shared responsibility, and also I still think that a lot of the psychological burden still falls on women. So I think it's not a simple topic. There's a lot here. There's a lot of going under the surface and going, what's going on for both of these parents? And when the man takes responsibility, what's going on for him? And when the woman hands it off, what's going on for her? And might she, kind of take some back because she's ultimately the person who's going to get shame and guilt triggered if it doesn't happen right. And so I think it's a really interesting topic to dive into.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And when I hear you speak about how the role of men is changing, it's changing because the whole world is changing. And, centuries ago, you will probably not, experience that, having a man sharing a load, if you will, with a woman. But now, as the world progresses, and as we're more open-minded and more involved into our, parenting our children, that's how the roles are changing and even shifting in some ways, where you have, a dad staying at home with the kids, and mom going and working and all of that. And that's all. And even if you look at it as men and women role in parenting and in the family, it's kind of like a sub role of the parenting itself, because the parenting itself is a huge role also that we take on when we get kids. So you go from a single person to a married person, or from a single person to a mom, or anything like that. And it's changing throughout centuries. And even the books that were sometimes like 20 or 50 or 60 years ago, parenting books are totally different than we have parenting books today. And it's a really interesting correlation between the two, where you see the childbearing and rearing and raising, and how all of that it goes into it. And then if you look at different religions and different cultures also, they all entail different roles. They all see different roles. Parenting is something that is different. For instance, I was reading about how parenting roles are looked upon from the religious perspective, and it's in generally the father is the figure that protects, that leads, that provides for the family. It's a disciplinarian as well in some cases, where on the other hand you have a mother who's loving and caring and nurturing and things like that. I read it and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a disciplinarian in the family, but that was a it happens sometimes. What are you going to do? And then you have culturally also, where you see a mother as somebody who stays home and, cares for the family. And then you see a father who, goes and provides and comes back and all of that. So it's like you said, Antonia, it's really interesting. It's a very deep topic. And, I'm really excited to see where we're going to go with that, because, there's a lot to share.
Absolutely. I think I've had a lifelong fascination with this topic, mostly because when I was growing up, there were three girls in my family. The youngest one was a boy, and I had a dad who really believed that women rule the world. And he went so extreme that he didn't want what would be considered traditional roles of women, which is cleaning, cooking, tending to children. I never saw that experience. In fact, he was so adamant, he went to the full extreme where we were never allowed to wash a dish. We were never allowed to cook anything. It was like the far end of whatever he would be considered domesticated duties, which is probably why I broke every dish the minute I moved out onto my own, because it just slipped out of my hand and I had no clue. Then I would always watch at different aunties and uncles' houses, or just that dynamic that would happen about who took which role. And then when I got married, I don't think that my father-in-law is going to be necessarily watching this podcast, but I just Zealand, and I was around him for a long time. And I don't think in any other person I've seen something as staggeringly the antithesis of what my father was, which was somebody who's very caught up in a gender role. He would, stand over my husband's mom and say, when is my tea coming? Or if she goes out and we all went out, they call tea for dinner. Or we go out and we're having fun shopping, and then he'll trail back like a puppy behind her going, well, who's going to cook my tea? And I would look at him kind of horrified and nervous about what my daughter, or wanting to protect his mother. And yet they have this wonderful relationship. And I remember his mother saying to me once when she came over to Canada, I don't know what he would have done if he had married a modern woman. And I'm thinking, so what I find fascinating is, how people grow up, even despite growing up, and I think this is really important, despite growing up with a father like this and being exposed to, what would not be considered domesticated duties, and seeing my father in a very hands-on loving role, is I still feel that I have a deep sense of, as you mentioned, Antonia, shame factor. Like if my house is a mess and things aren't done and I forget something and I just look like I'm floundering, of personal judgment. And it's not just an internal thing. I believe that anyone coming to my house will sooner judge me, even though they're my friends and they'll say they're not judging me, but people will sooner judge me than they would my husband. And I feel I know this because if I look in myself, I'm very, very aware of that. And yet, if I went someplace and I did pass a judgment, because that's what we are, we judge even though it happens in a microsecond, I've noticed, I wouldn't say this is a defining aspect of me, but I've noticed that my attention will be sooner directed to a lack of, I don't know, cleanliness, not to do with household, but to do with something to the woman more than the man. And that's where I find it interesting, is where is that coming from? Because I wasn't exposed to that as much going home. So my feelings, and I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this, where this is actually coming from, or if you even have different experiences, because I'm sure the media and culturally, I mean, growing up in Canada, but is playing a role here. So Antonia, what do you think? Where is this all coming from?
My guess is it's two prime nodes in the system. The first one is that we have genetic memory inside of us. Our genes have memories. And these have been cultural norms since, I mean, for a really long time. A long time of cultural and even, you know, like animal evolution. There was a very specific reason why women were nurturers and men were the, you know, the breadwinners, quote unquote, because before there was bread to win, there was hunting. And a woman was incredibly vulnerable when she was in a pregnancy phase and when she was, you know, suckling her young. So it became very natural for women to be the ones who stay back with the young while the men go and hunt and gather, or eventually to, you know, farm, or eventually be the blacksmith or whatever they are. I mean, this is a, you know, eons of understandable evolutionary roles, like social roles. And then on top of that, I do believe that there is a powerful social component that reinforces it over and over. I mean, we're at a turning point technologically in a lot of different ways. Right now we're facing new physical technology that we can see that's unprecedented. But our social technology is changing too. And you can see this push-pull relationship between our desire to leap forward and our, you know, holding ourselves back a little bit as a check and balance system. And I think part of the push forward is a reinvention of what the modern family looks like, and the pull back is sort of like, well, yeah, but we spent eons doing something else. So I think what ends up happening then is we get confusing cultural messages. And one of the number one most confusing cultural message for men, I think this is actually a problem that men face way more than women do, is that we paint fathers as idiots. In commercials, in TV shows, in sitcoms, fathers are always painted as the idiot. Like recently I just watched a commercial about, I don't know, like a anti-grease soap, right, dish soap, and the commercial was around how like this guy, right, this father and his son thought it was so brilliant to put non-stick grease on absolutely every single dish that they owned so they would never have to wash dishes again. And the long-suffering mother's like, oh, isn't that funny how retarded they are, like how incredibly stupid they are as people? Oh, they're there, right? And you can see this pervasive everywhere. We just got back from Florida. We spent about a week and a half in Florida, and we went to Disney for a couple days. Now, I brought a babysitter for the first time ever on this trip, which was the bomb, by the way. If you've never traveled with a babysitter, if you can, find the cheapest labor possible and take them with you. It was amazing. But my babysitter's young, and the first time she took Piper out, it was kind of a working holiday, so we were working, and the babysitter was taking Piper swimming at the hotel pool, and she forgot sunblock. And it was like probably 2 hours in where we were like, hey, did she put on sunblock? And so we ran the sunblock down. But by that point, it was too late. Piper had a little bit, like a tiny little hint of a burn, which I don't think is the end of the world, but most mothers think is child abuse, right? So she had a little bit of a burn, like just a tiny little one, not anything to really panic at, just like a tiny little burn for the rest of the trip, right? And we're in Disney, and she's like wearing tank tops. And every time Piper was with Joel, some well-intentioned woman would offer sunscreen, like in Disney, in the park. They'd be like, do you want to put sunscreen on? I mean, we had sunscreen on her the whole time after that, but they were like, do you want to put sunscreen on her? She really should have sunscreen. But when I had Piper, nobody said anything, right? Like if I was carrying her,
Wow.
nobody said a thing. But if Joel had, there were probably at least 3 times in standing in lines, women were like, she really should have sunblock. Well, they don't know that Joel's 10 times more conscientious about it than I am. In fact, when the person who was like, does Piper have sunblock? That was Joel. He ran the sunblock down to the babysitter and put it on. I'm like, da 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 da, right? I'm like working and I'm not thinking about it. But the assumption is he's an idiot and he doesn't know this. He doesn't know babies need sunblock, right? And by the way, Disney is fascinating. It's a fascinating study of what is like in mass considered appropriate and inappropriate. I've learned that Disney is the one place where you can lose your shit on your kids, like just lose your shit, and nobody considers that child abuse. But if you forget sunblock, that's child abuse.
For
Right,
water.
that's child abuse. Right. Anyway, but yeah, so it's like there's this assumption that dads are idiots, but then at the same time they're getting all this pressure to like share the load, also be a big part of, the parenting component, and if they don't, they're terrible people. So there's this really confusing mixed message that I think men get in roles, just like women get the confused mixed message of, like you're supposed to go be a working, like go have a life outside your kids, but also anything that goes wrong is entirely your responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of commercials, when you see a average commercial about a detergent or a cleaning supply or anything like that, who are you going to see? You're going to see a woman kneeling by the, tub, cleaning. You're going to see a mom, fretting over how their boys' soccer uniforms are stained, indefinitely and things like that. And then, if you see again, a cleaning supply commercial, but there's a dad happen to be mowing the lawn outside, so it is very fresh. We are pressurized to think a certain way, and I don't know if that's the intention of some higher power or whatever it is, but then again, on the other hand, we men are pressured to share the load. My opinion when it comes to that is that there can never be like the and I know this is going to sound a travesty, but the equality is never going to be existent between the men and women, because we're just different and we bring different things to the table, and we bring different learnings for the table and different teachings to our kids. So, if I'm better at, cleaning, changing diapers, cooking, or anything like that, I'll take on it. If my husband is better at, soccer skills and, teaching them different things and, being a man, with his boys, I take on it. If I happen to have a better conversation, we had that, on the previous topic of sex talks and everything. If I'm more open to it and my boys are coming to me and asking me about it and my husband is not, I'll take it. So I really think that we should be going with it, whoever is available at that point, and who in that moment actually, and whoever has better things to offer in that moment to the kid, by all means go for it. It doesn't have to be like, oh, that's not my role. My role is not to talk to my boys about sex, or my role is not to do this, or his role is not to go and pick up after themselves and do the laundry or anything like that. Who cares at the end of the day? The lines are getting to be blurred, even more, and I just wish that whoever is taking on the role that is not his natural, or given by the culture or by the social environment or anything, they can just be okay with it. They don't have to do it because they have to do it. They want to do it because they want to do it, and like we ladies say, not that I want you to want to do the dishes.
Yeah.
And not to do the dishes because I tell you to do the dishes.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you brought up, Mariana, about whoever happens to have the resources available, just get on with it and do it. What I get personally nervous about, and I'll speak for myself, is that's exactly the mindset that I have. So I know that I'm better and quicker at certain things, and my husband can go and tackle other things. Like, I'm going to give you a very simple one. I know that I'm much more efficient because my husband likes to cook gourmet, and it hardly ever happens. And I know I can quick, healthy, good meals much more faster. So that's something that I've taken on. And I know that I could do the garbage, but it's just easier, and there's always kind of garbage piling up here. So he goes and he does the garbage. Very traditional role, though, right? I'll do the cooking, and he'll do the garbage. Now, it's not because he told me that that's the role. Like, he's very different from his dad. He's like, he's pretty easygoing with everything, and he will do anything I ask. But here's what my worry is. I have to look at where is it coming from that I've even created that role? Because prior to meeting me, the majority of his life is he's cooked his own meals, so he's obviously capable. But now that I have children, I'm just aware, especially on the tail end of coming back from New Zealand and my children watching how Nana and Papa interact with each other. And that of course is at the forefront of my mind. I don't want that. My husband would probably freak out if he knew I was talking about this. I don't want my son and daughter to code, like for my son to code, oh, mom cooks the meals. And I've asked that question because I'm curious about what they're templating just by watching this. So we know, like we have this unwritten thing, yeah, if you can cook the meal, I cook the meal, but I'm just better at it, faster at it, I'll do it. But still, there's something that's being like kind of written in these kids' heads because Luke even said, Mom, the women always do like so much more of the work. And then, and it's not because their dad does a lot, but he's seeing in terms of like kitchen commotion, I'm the one with all the balls in the air. Now that concerns me about the woman he chooses to date or marry or what his expectations are or whatever it is. And I want to make sure that there's something that consciously is done to even it out. Simply, I don't know for sure whether or not that's going to change with all this other cultural norms and religious norms and media, but I want to make sure that he sees a really fair representation, which created the discussion just when we came back with my husband. I go, Dad, would you like to start cooking some more meals? And of course he said, yes, I would, because I'd love Luke to be able to see his dad 2 or 3 times out of 7 days consciously cooking a meal. So he goes, yeah, that's the role that I play too. And same thing with my daughter. I mean, I'm very similar to my dad. I don't want her to feel that her role in her life when she grows up is to be some sort of domestic. I'm not worried that that's going to be her role, but I see it so much that she feels that her role is to be this domestic. And I just want to share like an article that I read not so long ago when they talk about, well, women have their roles and men have their roles. And I go, oh, so let's just think about that. What are the typical male roles? So you take out the garbage, fix the car, do anything inside with the lawns. How is that like what is that, once every 2 weeks? Like how does that compete with a woman who is trying to keep house clean and do the laundry and cook and whatever traditional woman roles are? And this is like, I mean, I'm not saying that we fall into specific traditional roles, but there's no comparison. Guys have a really easy guy job set of things to do. It's like almost a joke. I'm happy to not do the lawns, but I'll do it if that means that I get a cooking for 4 days, And I know that my husband will take on cooking for 4 days, but this whole historical message of, well, guys have their man jobs. Yeah, you get to flip the kids in the air and take them for a run in the park and do the lawns and take out the garbage. Like, big whoop. Try cooking a meal 7 days a week. Try and make it healthy and make sure that there's laundry for your kids and make sure the shopping's done. And those type of things are work. And I really kind of want other women to kind of have that conversation because we've had it before, but now it is so at the forefront of my mind that, no, I'm going to make like a plan where we do this evenly, and not because he's fighting me on it, simply because I think I was resisting. I was just like, you know what, I'm the everything girl and I'll just do everything because I know how to do everything, and kind of martyr myself and secretly go like curmudgeon about the fact that I'm martyring myself. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'm going to start evening it out in the household consciously, both for what the kids see in the house and because I think I've been silent for too long. Even with a husband who's like super woman rule the world too. Sorry, Antonia.
No, I think that's, I completely understand that. And I also, before you were asking, like, where does this come from? Like, why do we feel so programmed or templatized to feel this way? And I'm like, well, I think it's a bit of genetic memory, and I think it's also socially, reinforced. But I think that whole dad's an idiot meme that we get socially reinforced over and over, I think it makes us as, and of course, obviously, we're talking about heterosexual couples, and I'm not entirely sure how the dynamic would play out between same-sex couples, but my guess is it probably has some like there's probably a mirror version of this for same-sex couples. This whole dad's an idiot thing, I think it actually encourages us to resist what you're talking about, because we don't think we can trust dad or the husband. Like, hey, can you do laundry? Wait, what? You mean you put the laundry in before the water? What? No, you put the water in and then the soap, and you wait till the soap dissolves in the water, and then you put the clothes in. What? I mean, don't you know how to do this? Wait, what? You stack the dishwasher that way? Like, there's this whole concept of how things should be done, and because we believe that if somebody saw our laundry not done well, they're going to judge us as women, then he's got the responsibility of not just doing the task, but doing it to our specifications, because we're the person who's going to be judged, right? And so you got to do it my way, because I'm the person who's going to take all the heat if you do it wrong. That's the thing that needs to be reprogrammed. The thing that goes, I don't give two shits if somebody judges me for my laundry. Okay, so I went out and wrinkled clothes. So, right? Like, I don't care. And this idea of going, you know what, if that's the way you want to, I mean, as long as it's hygienic, if that's the way you want to do that, go ahead and do it that way. And it's this wanting power. It's like the nabbing of power back. It's like the husband needs to have 50% of all the tasks and responsibilities, but he doesn't get any privilege of deciding how that's done. So he has all the responsibility without any of the privilege, because we feel like we're going to be judged for the results. And so we ultimately get the privilege of how it's done. And I think we just got to let go. We got to let go of this idea that we're going to be judged if our house is trashed. You can probably hear it in my voice, I've been dead sick for like 3 or 4 days. I was just saying that I haven't bathed in like 4 days before this recording. I was rank. And you can imagine the house after 4 days of me being completely sick and Joel trying to take care of a toddler. We had the boys this weekend too, so like it's still kind of like post boys weekend trashed, and then it was like I'm totally sick trashed, and then it's 2-year-old trashed, and like the house is embarrassing. And our child care came in this morning for the first time because we're all healthy enough, and she's like, yeah, I'll risk it. I was like, don't come over, you're gonna get sick. And she's like, oh, I'll risk it. I'm like, okay, if you want to. And so she came into what I would describe as a disturbingly gross house, right? Like, it's disgusting. It doesn't meet any of my specifications. And I was really self-conscious about it for about 2 seconds, and I went, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. I've been sick. We were on vacation. We had the boys. Like, it's the natural emergence of the circumstances, and I don't care if the babysitter is judging me. And she's not. Like, she's seen my house clean a million times. She's not judging me. It's all fine. But I had this like, oh God, the babysitter's here and my house is trashed. We gotta let go of that. You gotta let go of the shame, this guilt, this I'm the woman, so I should be everything to all people, and everything should be pristine and sparkly, and all of my countertops should be going ding and have like the Mr. Clean like reflection in the countertop, right? Like it's just not gonna be that way, and you gotta be okay with that, so that when the husband comes along to go, yeah, I'll lift 50% of that from you. You just give it to him. He gets privilege, he gets responsibility, he gets autonomy over how it happens, and you just are okay with the result, right? Like, it's no longer your deal. You're not pulling all that power back. You're not pulling all that responsibility back. You're not pulling all that shame back. I think that would make a huge difference, and we would start respecting our husbands more when they do that stuff, as opposed to going, he's an idiot. If he does dishes, he's just going to put non-stick grease on everything, right? Like, nobody is that stupid. So stop treating men as if they are. I think it doesn't honor either of us.
No, you're absolutely right. And I am guilty of, and I inherited that from my dad, where I'm not going to say I know best how to do something. When I know how to do something, it would be very difficult for me to share that, to ask somebody else to do it for me, because by the time I explain it to that other person how I want it to be done, I'm going to waste twice as much time, and I could be done with that task and then starting on the other. So, we are actually, I'm getting better at it. I have to admit, I'm getting better at it, because we got to one point where Ivan wanted to do something for me, and I got into explaining, and he did it wrong, and, we actually started, even fighting around it, and he said, wow, you are a Rambo. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, Rambo, he does everything but on his own. He's by himself, fighting every freaking body. So my nickname, even now, it's Rambo. So he was like, oh, here we go. She's in Rambo mode. And my dad is like that. My dad is 71 years old. Yeah, 71 years old. and he still works like he thinks he's 35. I swear to God, he does not ask anybody for help. He rarely hires anybody to help him. My mom is just pulling her hair out, but he is like that, and I got a lot of it from him, and I'm consciously learning to let that go of. And as long as it's done, it's okay. It doesn't have to be my way. It doesn't have to be perfect way, as long as it's done. So I think that we ought to really, really consider that and let go. And to your other point, Antonia, is the judgment. I believe that a lot of it is in our own head. I am yet to see, do other women judge other women on, clean house, motherhood, and things like that? Yes, we do. But I don't know how and when was that put upon us. It is still happening. But most of it is in our heads, because if I have yet to see somebody go into somebody's house, I have seen it, to be honest, but not recently, where, she will be like going around like in the movies, looking, like, ooh, there's dust here.
Like the white glove.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's underwear on the floor, things like that. But then most of it, I do, when I go into somebody's house, I do kind of look around, and sometimes it's because I want to compare it and, kind of make myself feel better if my house is dirtier than theirs. But I will never, it's a very split of a second kind of thing. Oh, well, it could be cleaner, but that's okay. She's a busy mom, or, anything like that. So I let go of it really quickly. And I certainly don't judge a person, as my friend, or, whoever it is that I'm visiting based on that. But if you look at it, from the men's perspective, 99.9% of men are not going to care in which condition the house is when they come home. Because everything that they want to do when they come home is just think about nothing. If you've seen the video about the box, how there's a box in a man's brain when there's a nothing box, and if they can choose, they will be always in the nothing box. They don't really care. They just want to, it's okay if, their laundry is not put out, or, the dishes are still in the sink. It's okay. And then if we ask them, hey, what, can you do this for me? Majority of them will do it, as long as we let the hell go of them and let them do it their own way. A guy, I'm speaking for what I've seen, like my dad and Ivan and, other men that I know, what they really want is to make a woman happy. When their woman is happy, they feel like they're on the top of the world. And then if he thinks that doing the dishes is going to make me happy, I will give him that opportunity. And then if I scold him for it afterwards, that it's not done properly or the way how I will do it, he will be crushed in a way. His ego will be like, oh, well, I was going to do this for her, and, she's not happy. What else can I do to make her happy? So just let go of it. Let them do. As long as it's done, it's done. Who cares? And the kids get bigger, and the more kids you have, I think you become more lenient. Like, oh, whatever it is, and just let go of it in your head. Also, like the judgment and putting it upon yourself. It's okay.
It's okay. I'll have to remember that, because Marianne, I could really relate to the Rambo. We don't have that term, but I'm sure if I put that out there, that'll become the phrase in the house. Yeah, I definitely can relate. There's a control freakness to me, wanting to be a very particular way. And who knows how to do it best? I do. I know how to do it best because I've done it a million times. But, it's just like having a child. If you have a child, and I mean, I'm not saying this to demean a man, but if you have a child and they're trying to do this and you've always taken over, like packing the baby, well, I don't pack baby bags anymore, but, let's say packing a baby bag. If you've always done it, yeah, maybe they forget the diaper or the diaper cream or the something one time. And then instead of going, oh, I do this all the time and I just passed you one time, you could realize that, well, just like a child learning to something, when they're now starting to pack a baby bag for the first time, I'm sure I forgot something the first time I packed a baby bag. Probably not, but anyways. But I think what also is, as I begin to try and transform this and become really conscious of it, is, as you talked about judgment, and you as well, Mariana, is how, when we say, like, well, just don't judge, or, try and lessen the judgment. The how-to for that, for me, has been this. It actually came not that long ago, and it's obviously my work in progress, but we were doing like a big renovation, and the place was in chaos. I mean, everything in the cupboards are in the sink, like everything's everywhere, and I would feel stressed out coming in here. But you know, I started to carve like little areas as the living room got done, and thinking the kids really want to have their friends over. And I would love to have my girlfriend over, but I have to feel like I have to give a million explanations. But you know, the place is in chaos and we're renovating. Like, how many times can I say that I'm renovating? Yeah, I don't care. But meanwhile, I need to steer it in their minds that no, I'm renovating, and that's why things are like a pigsty. And then but what
Hashtag please don't judge.
yeah, but I actually would feel annoyed at myself for even have to put all these little clauses and everything there and couch it perfectly so that I can feel better. And a part of me wants to just go, screw it, I'm just going to have them over. So what I did, observing this and feeling annoyed, is I said, okay, I know that range is good, and the only way to build range is to just go a little bit past your comfort level. So the how-to for this, or at least for me, was having some friends over, and I started with the friends. I started with the friends that I knew, you know, their places are a bit messy too. So, but you know, this was still progress for me. And I invited them over and I decided to say nothing. You know, they had already known once, but before they came in, I didn't feel a need to say it because this was my test case. And I noticed that, yes, was it past my comfort zone? Yes. Did I live? Did we get down to talking and having a laugh and sharing a tea and doing all those fun things you do? And did the kids have a good time as they maneuvered around, you know, boxes? Yes. So that was a really great way for me to learn, okay, I can do it. I survived, and I still feel like nothing's jeopardized the friendship. I don't think they're thinking that I'm some piggy wiggy girlfriend of theirs. So good. Then maybe I can do it the next time where I never have to say, you know, yeah, I didn't get a chance to do my laundry. That's why it's all over the couch. And then they come in and they see the laundry and it stays there. And we function. And the only way that I think I can do it is just by trying it out. Because I could say it, and yet I'm still going to want to, I can say don't judge, but, or I can think about not judging. But that's been my practical how-to. So there you go.
To tack on to that, I mean, this is pretty basic, and I think we all know this, but we are generally judgmental of ourselves. We're so critical of ourselves, so much more than we are of other people. And so if we can quiet our inner mean girl voice, like that inner critical mean girl who's like I just recently went, when we were in Florida, my in-laws were down there also taking vacation in kind of a, I mean, we were in Orlando at the same time, but they were sort of having their own vacation. We went to a park one day, and we dropped our van off at their hotel so they could take it. And the van is, like, again, the van is disturbing in its how gross it is. It's like, to me, I've just had to shut off the grossness of the van to not like really think about it, because we're gonna get it detailed, and my brain keeps going, well, don't worry about all the Cheetos falling, like Piper's like eating her, you know, her cake pop and it's everywhere, and I'm like, yeah, but we're gonna get it detailed. So I've got this like, we're gonna get it detailed mantra going on in my head. So I've like done nothing to it for like the entire winter, because I'm like, oh, we're getting it detailed in the spring. So now it's like at a point where I'm like, it's really hard for me to justify that I own something that looks like that. And then we lent it to them, and as we handed the keys over, I'm like, this is not driving worthy. Like, these people are meticulous. They vacuum their way out of their house, and they're going to get into my, like, cake pop filled, sticky, disgusting, crumbs everywhere car that just took a road trip down there. So there's, like, literally garbage everywhere because our little garbage can in our minivan, just could not sustain the sheer amounts of garbage on the way down, right? Like, from all the food we were eating and stuff. So it was really gross, and I just handed the keys over. I'm like, yeah, it's not fit for humans. That's all I said. I was like, the van is not fit for humans, but as long as you're okay with that, have at. And I just didn't say anything
detail
else.
it. Did he detail it?
They should have. But, like, they should have taken pity on their poor daughter-in-law and gone, oh, she clearly doesn't have basic life skills, and we need to do this for her. But they didn't, and I just did it. And I thought, man, that was really, like you said, that's really liberating. So I also started by just not judging myself, by going, dude, I've got a 2.5-year-old. We just had a road trip. Like, it's going to be fine, right? And that's what I did, is I quieted the voice that was criticizing myself. So that's my how-to. My how-to is, yeah, baby steps are great, and also be aware of when you're criticizing yourself. and just kind of go, thank you for reminding me the van needs attention, because that's what that voice is. The voice is going, something needs attention. And thanks for reminding me. You're right. The van does need attention. I'll get on that later when it becomes a priority, which it's not right now. So just kind of think that inner dialogue, because it's there to remind you of something good. It's just not a priority right now. So just go, I'll attend to that. Thanks.
It's a conscious choice. You know, my how-to is that I always remember it's a conscious choice. I can choose, you know, I see something that is going on that it's not to my liking. And in that moment, I can choose to be upset about it, to go and do it even though I'm tired or something else is waiting for me, to fret about it, to blame, you know, whoever did it, or myself for doing it or not doing it. Or I can just say, look, like you said, Antonia, oh, okay, assess the situation. I see that the laundry is here. This needs to be done. Do I have time to do it now? No. Is it going to help me if I go away to do another task and, you know, think about it and be it on the back of my head and kind of eating on me and, you know, judging myself for it? Not really. So at this moment, I'm just going to choose and kind of go on. That's you know, I'm trying to, like I said before, I'm an aspiring Buddhist. So I'm trying to live in the moment and make decisions as I go. So in that moment, it's not going to help me, if, you know, if especially like you said, the inner mean voice, you know, eating out at me, and just like I said, make a conscious choice and stick with it, you know. And if in this moment, and I'm learning also to give myself a permission. So if I'm tired and I need to take a nap or, you know, lift my legs up, you know, which is a really good technique, you know, Google it, like the legs up against the wall, you know, it really cleans your, you know, blood in your lymphatic system and everything. Sorry about the digression, but if I need to do that for 10 minutes, I'm going to give myself a permission consciously to do it. And everything else afterwards is going to be, you know, attended to in a much better and quieter and, you know, just all around better way. That's my how-to.
Hey, Ria, I know that we probably have to go, and I know that we just did our how-tos, but before we go, I know that not everybody feels the same way that we do about, you know, traditional roles. Some people prefer a patriarchal setup. Some people kind of prefer different gender roles assigned the way that society has it set up. And that actually made me think of how different personality types see different templates, different role templates. So I was thinking we could probably talk about that in one of our 15-minute podcasts. So I just want to make a little note that we acknowledge that not everybody feels the same way that we do on this. And I just want to put a little like bookmark in that there are different styles of templates and, you know, roles, and we can talk about that in a future podcast.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So we're looking forward to that. So you definitely don't want to miss our next podcast where we're going to dive into that. And just to highlight what all of our takeaways are from this really fascinating discussion. So as I mentioned, you want to just try little baby steps to build your range, because that's how you grow, is if you just take your, you know, move bit by bit. And as Antonia said, you want to, you know, lessen the judgment. Be aware that you're human, and to go easy on yourself, because you can only change your behavior by loving it into submission as opposed to beating it like a redheaded stepchild. Oh, God. No, you can only change your behavior by loving it into submission. So yeah, go easy on yourself, which is a really great tip. And Mariana, when you mentioned, which was a really friggin' good one too.
Conscious decision.
Mariana, when you mentioned to live in your now and to just be really hyper conscious about, is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes. What kind of decision? It's you making a conscious decision in the now, that, you know, and giving yourself a permission to not clean the fucking house.
Mariana, as you so eloquently put, live in your now and give yourself permission to, you know, sit back and not feel like you have to take on, you know, like Atlas with the whole world on your back. Take that on. Give yourself permission to just chill out. So again, leave comments because we love to read them, and we'll see you next week.